Hey, listeners, just before we get into today's podcast, I just wanted to give a shout out to today's sponsor, the Pretentious Pickle Company. The Pretentious Pickle Company is located at 190 Water Street right here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. If you are a pickled fan, you can find everything under the sun here that has been pickled, whether it be obviously pickled cucumbers, but they do cauliflower, green beans, carrots, onions, okra, Brussels sprouts, eggs, anything that you can pickle, they do pickle. It's all delicious. They have tons of things to choose from. It's made right there in their own kitchen, all locally made, all locally sourced. And they're just such a great place to go. So if you live here in Plymouth, by all means, swing down to 190 Water Street and check them out. They are open Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 10 to 4, and Sundays, 11 to 4. But if you're not local to Plymouth, you can still enjoy Pretentious Pickle Company by heading over to www.pretentiouspickle.com, and you can order right there and they'll ship it to you. So you can get pickles locally sourced somewhere else and shipped right to you, and they're all delicious. So definitely check them out. Thank you to the Pretentious Pickle people. Welcome back, Inebri-Arites. This is Andy, the Inebri-Art Podcast. And, I had gotten so ahead of myself recording episodes. I think some of the ones going up now, I think right now it's January. I record them back in, I don't think, like August. It seems like maybe even a little bit later, September. And so I've been kind of not recording a lot. So I'm a little bit rusty. And Inebri-Art had started off as a drink and draw, and I first heard about Drink and Draws from the Drink and Draw Social Club books that came out of California. And that's where I was first caught Jim Mahfood's art. And luckily he's joining us with us today. See, Mart? I told you, man, I'm rusty. So welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Drink and Draw, the glory days.
Yeah. Do you still do them? Like, do you attend them, or do they still do them, I should say?
Well, the original LA Drink and Draw guys, Dave Johnson, Jeff Johnson, and Dan Panosian, they do it as a YouTube show now.
Oh, no kidding.
Which is actually pretty interesting, man, because they each have a camera on their desk and they're drawing, and they've had some really good guests on during quarantine. Like they've had like Kevin Eastman and Mike Mignola.
Oh, wow, nice.
Who else? I'll tune in occasionally, but I lived in LA for 16 years, and that's how I got to, be basically a weekly attendee of the original LA Drink and Draw.
Yeah.
Started by those three badass artist guys. And then I moved to Portland about 3 years ago, and there's not an official Drink and Draw out here, but like on Saturdays when places were open,
yeah,
I would get together with some local comic artists, because this is a big comic book town.
Yeah.
And we would kind of hang out and draw and do like it was more of like a brunch and draw.
Okay. Yeah.
And draw, because I don't know, dude, we're all
getting older, man.
We're all getting older, and like the idea of all of us getting together on Saturday nights and just getting trashed, and then waking up the next day. I guess it's Sunday, so who cares? But
yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but like for me, hangovers last like 2 days now.
It's like
it's insane,
and they come on way easier. Like I had like a little memorial get together for a friend of mine who passed last night, and it's like I only had a couple beers, and I woke up this morning. I'm like, I feel like shit. Like it was just a couple of beers, and it's.
I feel the same way. Like because I went through like a pretty healthy party phase.
Yeah.
Of that basically lasted for like 2 decades. Like as soon as I left home and went to art school,
yeah,
and was away from my family, I was in a different city. I just went crazy with the booze and, you know, smoking weed and all the things that you're supposed to do when you get to art school, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's all great. But then that party kept going until basically I turned 38, 39. Right before I was 40, I was like, these hangovers, man, like I just I can't do this shit like I used to. And so it was kind of easy to phase out of it because I feel like I did what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I had a blast. Like I had a fucking blast, man. But how many nights of like being out till 3 a.m. and drinking like 7 scotches do you need?
Right, right.
You know what I mean? So like one of the funny things, one of the things that no one tells you is like, in my opinion, your body has a certain amount of booze and drugs you can put into it over a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And once you hit that limit, your body's like, what are you doing? You're done. You're good. And I feel like I was getting close to hitting that limit.
Yeah.
And so instead of having to like quit cold turkey, I just did the mature thing and was like, I'm going to go out and have 2 drinks instead of 7. or you know what I'm saying? Like instead of going out 3-4 nights a week when I was younger, it's like, I'll go out once a week now. And it hasn't even been that over the last year, obviously, because of the situation we're in. But,
and it's weird. Like you see people, you know, your 20s and 30s and you're fine. You get people who continue that party into their 40s, 50s, whatever. And it seems like overnight they look like they're a decade older.
Yeah.
You know, your body.
It's weird. Like that Chris Rock skit where he's like, no one likes to see that old guy in the club.
Yeah.
It just looks weird when you see like a late 50s person in the club, like getting fucked up.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's just one of those things of
my metric was always I never wanted to be the guy that drank at the Chinese food restaurant because those are always like the guys who've been shut off at every other place.
Yeah, that's your last resort is like the restaurant in your neighborhood. Yeah. But I mean, the cool thing about Drink and Draw though was it was obviously this great way of bringing all these creative people together. And in LA, it went beyond comics. It was like animation people, effects people, filmmakers, and everyone.
You had some like tattoo artists, like wasn't Kat Von D there?
Yeah. Kat would show up occasionally, and everyone would kind of be able to just unwind and talk about their craft. And you know, you have to be able to share and complain about this specific stuff with people that know, because otherwise you sound like a dickhead when you complain to normal people about drawing.
Yeah. You
know what I'm saying? Like, I had friends that are like, wait, deadlines? You're complaining about your job is you're at home in sweatpants, like drawing? So you have to have a crew of people that are doing this that you can relate to in that way.
Yeah.
You know? Otherwise you sound like an idiot.
Yeah, know? And it's so funny because like it got to the point around here. Ours ran for like 2 or 3 years every week, and you know, it got to the point where like people would kind of start to come around the bar and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And you're the guys that draw and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I even was doing pre-COVID, my day job. I worked in marketing. I was doing a trade show in Rhode Island, and so, you know, exchanging business cards with people and whatever. And this guy's like, "Oh, I know you." He's like, "I'm from Plymouth. You're the guy who sits at the bar and draws." And I'm like, "Awesome. Yeah, that's me."
Yeah. It attracts attention in, I guess, what could be a good or bad way.
Yeah.
You know, I've met cool people by being at the bar and drawing. And then you also will meet just weird drunk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
And people. And the funny thing is, like, the Drink and Draw LA guys, Dave Johnson, Jeff Johnson, and Panosian are all super huge dudes, like muscle guys. So if there was ever a weird situation, I always felt like, well, one of these guys will.
You guys take care of that shit.
Yeah. Like Panosian and Jeff Johnson are both like MMA guys. Like they fight, they box, they do martial arts. So if we were ever in a situation that was weird, I'd just be like, "Hey Dan, go handle this asshole," or whatever.
Now, did any like projects come out of that for you? Because wasn't the rule like you weren't supposed to bring like work to work on? But did you ever like develop ideas or anything come out of a drawing done at the drink and draws?
The best thing that came out of it was those 2 art books you mentioned. Like there was 2 hardcover like coffee table books. I think IDW published the first one, Image published the second one. So people listening, you can probably find those online. But that was kind of the cool thing is knowing that a lot of this weird stuff we were drawing without planning it wound up getting published.
Yeah.
And man, you see like some of the pieces that like Dave Johnson wound up doing at Drink and Draws, they were turning into like full-blown paintings almost, like full-blown finished illustrations that the rest of us would just be like looking over, seeing what he was doing and just responding like, dude, what the fuck? Like this is supposed to be a loose, just sketchy thing, and you're doing like full-blown like cover illustration. So it's kind of cool to see like some of the best stuff collected into these books, and I think that helped spawn and promote the idea to artists all over the world that you can get together with your friends anywhere and do this. And I was in London like 3 years ago for the Thought Bubble convention. That's actually in Leeds, but I was in London before that. And I went to the London Drink and Draw.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, it was cool to go from like the originator guys, the LA guys, to being in another country and seeing that Drink and Draw became this established way of building community, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. That's we always ended up with like, not really games, but kind of like repeated things. Like we had one sketchbook that we'd like pass around, and you drew like one little doodle in it and passed it to the next guy, and they'd add to it. And you always wanted to be, but never wanted to be the guy that first added a dick to it. But that always happened. And my buddy John, I think every time we got together, he would draw like a super inappropriate Hello Kitty, and it was just dumb fun. It was such a good way to kind of like cut back and relax.
Yeah, you have to have that release. And I think when I was living in LA, it became more of an excuse just to see all these brilliant artists, because LA is so big and spread out that even though everyone lives there, if I live in Hollywood and someone lives on the West Side by like Venice, I'm not really ever going to see you, because it's like an hour to get there in traffic.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a weekly way of just, everyone seeing each other and catching up on what's everybody working on, and that kind of camaraderie, which doing conventions for me was part of that camaraderie as well. And not having that for over a year now, man, is like, definitely sucks,
Yeah.
Like I was doing almost like a convention once a month, and
oh wow,
that was kind of my nice monthly trip.
Yeah.
I get out of my house, go kick it for like 4 or 5 days with friends, do the show, make some money, eat some delicious food, hang out at night, and then come back revitalized and inspired to get back to my solitary work.
Yeah.
And so, without that, it's been kind of, I've got friends I can hang out with out here, but it's way more limited just for the
you can't go anywhere. And it's crazy.
Yeah. It's like, hey, when the weather's nice, do you guys want to meet outside for an hour and like eat lunch
at a not crowded place?
At a not crowded place, like in on like we have to find our own seating or whatever. But
hopefully that's on the the downward trend. So you said that you started partying really when you got to college. Were you kind of more reserved in high school, or?
No, I started in high school.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like full blown, because I was just too, scared of getting in trouble with my parents. Like I had a extremely strict ex-military Middle Eastern father.
Yeah.
And I'm the oldest of 3 boys. So I caught the most shit.
Yeah.
And I have an older sister, but my older sister didn't ever get in trouble because she was like daddy's girl.
Right. But you're the one who is somehow responsible for when the other ones fuck up.
Yeah.
Why'd you let him do that?
So I caught the most shit. So I was always careful about my actions in high school. I think I started drinking beer and stuff like most high school kids do, but it wasn't until I got away and went to college out of state and was like, okay, now I can really be me. I can be the arty weirdo and like shave my head and wear the clothes I want to wear. And it's funny because that's what happened freshman year at art school. Like first week of school, man, all the freshmen like started going to the thrift store and buying and making their own clothes. People started either growing their hair out or shaving their head or getting their first piercing or their first tattoo. So it was really like, not only are you trying to figure out this path that you want to go on as an artist, you're also really trying to figure out like, okay, I'm away from the parents. Like I want to let my freak flag fly and express myself that way as well.
And I found it almost to be somewhat of like a weirdo Cold War where like, you know, you come from a small high school or whatever, and you're used to kind of being the artsy, unusual kid. And then you get there and everyone's the artsy, unusual kid. So they kind of like start to like push each other.
Yes.
You know? Like, oh, I got a piercing. I pierced my nose. I shaved my head. I got, you know, and the next thing you know, some girls wearing like a scuba mask in class and you're like, whatever.
Right. Right. That was, that's so funny. Cause like that did happen to me. Cause I was like the art star in my high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to, in high school, I was the art star. And then I got to the art school and was like, oh shit, I'm not special anymore. Like, there was a couple guys just immediately in my class that were doing the illustration kind of comics thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were better than me.
Yeah.
And then I met a couple guys that were older than me in the actual illustration department, and they were totally badass. And I felt like, okay, I have to start over from ground zero now. Shit, what am I going to do? You know, but luckily I became friends with all those guys, and it was more like not a competition, but let's form a crew. We're the weirdo, like comic guys at this school.
Yeah.
Let's stick together and try and make some cool shit happen and encourage each other.
Yeah.
So it could have gone the other way and it could have been like a weird, ugly competition, but luckily everyone was cool and trying to learn from each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My buddy is always like, oh, you know, art's not a competition, but we would occasionally go to like a Dr. Sketchy's and they would do like a giveaway and he would be like pissed if he didn't win or like that wasn't a competition. He'd be like, shut up.
Right.
Yeah. So you said your dad was strict. Was he supportive of your art?
Yeah. I mean, both my parents were super cool in that way. They encouraged me, but they basically told me, we don't know anything about this field, this profession. So we don't know what to do to help you other than encourage you. And, you know, I wound up getting a small scholarship to this art institute in Kansas City, Missouri. And, but my parents were cool enough that like I had my heart set on going to New York.
Yeah.
Go to like School of Visual Arts or Pratt or something. So in 1992, my dad and I actually made a trip to New York to go look at the schools.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
He had never been to New York, so it was kind of an excuse for us to go to New York. But after seeing the schools, man, I mean, my dad was just like, I just don't see you being out in New York alone at 18 years old. Like, I just don't. We went to Pratt, man, in Brooklyn, and at the time, Pratt was still in the projects. It was like gated campus. And outside of the big iron gates while we're doing the tour, there's like dudes doing crack deals on the street.
Oh, wow.
So for me, being raised in the suburbs of the Midwest in St. Louis, I was like, holy shit, dude. We went to Times Square and it was before Giuliani cleaned it up. Yeah. So me and my dad were walking through Times Square and it was still like the sex shows.
Yeah.
And people doing like the card hustles.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And after the trip, man, my dad was just like, I just don't see this happening for you. It's like, I just don't. And then I wound up getting money from Kansas City anyway, like more money.
Yeah.
So that was like a 3.5 hour drive away from St. Louis. But the most important thing to me was I was still getting away from my family.
Right. That's almost like the perfect like distance where
Yes.
you're far enough away where you're not at home, but you're still close enough where shit goes south. You know, you can get home or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It wound up working out really well. The school itself was just okay, but I wound up meeting these guys like I was telling you about that were the comic book guys. One of them was a cat named Mike Huddleston, who is still my best friend to this day. And he was 1 or 2 years ahead of me. And I wound up becoming his inker. So he was doing self-published comics. I was inking them. And he's currently doing a book at Image Comics right now called Decorum that Jonathan Hickman's writing. And it's one of the best books out there right now, man. It's like revolutionary level looking stuff. So meeting Mike was a huge revelation. And then one of my other classmates who lived next to me in the dorms was this guy, Nathan Fox. And Nathan's also now a huge, well-known, respected illustrator, comic book artist. He does a book at Image called Weatherman. Absolutely fantastic. So my close circle of guys that were in school with me, most of us went on to actually become professional working illustrator, freelancer, comic book people. So that was the big thing I got out of school, man. Like the school itself, I learned some things, but it's also like, I don't know, I feel like art school in a way is sort of a scam.
Yeah, you know,
that's just me, but I don't know.
Well, the thing that I found was most beneficial to my work was the first time I pretty much spent almost all day, every day working on art. And just that alone, you get so much better, so much faster.
Yes.
You know, so I think that just and kind of being surrounded with those like-minded people who to this day, I don't draw nearly as much as I should, but just the idea of collaborating and working with other people, that's what I find. It doesn't even matter what it's on, like whatever event or project, or it's the working with other people and sharing ideas. I think is the most fun.
Definitely. And where did you go to school?
Montserrat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that 4-year program?
Yeah, it was a 4-year program. I did 2.
Okay. Yeah.
But then I dropped out and got into a serious relationship and got like a working man's job and
sure,
you know, and always kind of tried to do creative stuff and then we started Inebri-Art. I mean, at the time it didn't even have a name, and you know, it's divorces and shit and
life shit.
So life shit. So then I was working at friggin' Home Depot and I was like, oh, you know, maybe we can turn this Inebri-Art thing into like a business. And I wanted, or I didn't want to, we started doing like the paint night things, you know, with the canvases and the bars, and that did okay. It was just like a oversaturated market. There was just too many people doing it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of stopped. I ended up in a marketing position that I liked much better. And we just kind of stopped trying to make Inebri-Art about business and just make it about supporting artists and finding places for them to hang art and talk to people and have fun.
Right.
And then it blew up. You know, awesome. It's like, you know, when it became fun and made it something that you wanted to do, it was so much better.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's like when you don't force something, sometimes that's the thing that becomes a bigger thing. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
You could have an elaborate business plan and try and hit all these different marks and whatnot. And when if it fails, it's so much more of a disappointment than if you just do something for fun.
Yep.
And that fun thing, that's kind of what happened to me in college, man. Like I was trying to break in to mainstream comics as an inker.
Okay.
I just wanted to ink comics. And so me and Mike Huddleston were trying to break in as a penciler inker team. We got a couple gigs with like DC and Caliber Press, real small stuff.
Yeah.
And when I realized I wasn't going to break in as the inker, I just said, screw it. I'm just going to write and draw my own indie comics, self-publish them, print like 100 copies when I can, 200 copies, distribute them to local comic shops, record stores, whatever. That's the thing that wound up getting me discovered and getting me my first professional work.
Yeah.
So it was the fun, me just being myself. Like, I'm just going to go off on my own and do my thing. Yeah. That's what actually launched my entire art career.
Yeah. So it just became like our rules are whatever we do has to be inclusive, because I feel like the art world can be really pretentious.
Yeah.
And it has to be fun, because at the time we were working I was working full time, my buddy was working full time. So if it wasn't fun, why do it? And it just, it got to the point where people be like, hey, Andy, we have this idea. I'm like, sure, let's do it. And they'd be like, I didn't tell you what it was. I'm like, yeah, it's whatever. Let's just do it. And, and it just, it got weird, and it's great. I love it.
That's awesome.
So, but you said you wanted to break into mainstream comics. Your style is not typical for mainstream. So like, what were you reading as a kid that like made you want to get into comics, and how, were you gonna draw Superman the Superman way or the Jim Mahfood way?
Yeah. I mean, I got bit by the comics bug like really young. Like I was like 8 or 9 when I started buying Spider-Man comics. So it was initially seeing Spider-Man on TV in cartoon form and on
was it Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends?
It was that, but it was also I'm old enough to remember the Electric Company on PBS.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And they had those live action Spidey shorts.
Oh yeah.
So even as a little kid, I was like, what is this Spider-Man thing? This is awesome. So once I discovered there was actual comic books of this character, I started buying the comics, and then that led me down the wormhole of like, I'm drawing my own comics. And then the 80s explosion of like Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen happened. So comics were suddenly becoming mature and edgy. And I was like, 12 or 13 when that was happening. So for me, I felt like I was at the perfect age to be following all this stuff. So at 13, 14, saying that I wanted to work for Marvel or DC or whatever, that seemed legit, because Marvel and DC were doing shit like Dark Knight Returns at the time.
Oh,
and Electra Assassin and crazy stuff like that. And then next thing I know, I discovered like the Ninja Turtles black and white comics. Before that was the toys and the cartoon. And
when they were that odd size.
Yeah. Oversized.
Yeah.
And then that kind of hit me with, oh, well, shit, there's this whole black and white indie thing going on too. So I was trying to figure out like, what was my approach going to be for a career? And I wound up working for this local publisher in St. Louis called Artline Studios as an inker and like a background like cleanup artist for these guys. And so the inking bug was sort of my main thing of like, I love using the tools of ink and brush and pens. I'll just become the next inker at Marvel for like X-Men or something. Like that became my goal.
Yeah.
And then I wound up, going to college, going to art school, meeting Mike. Like I said, we tried to get in as a team. That didn't quite work. And then I actually went back to the black and white self-published roots, man, and was like, I'm just going to write and draw my own shit, create my own characters, and develop a style based around everything I'm taking in at the time, from illustration to Jamie Hewlett's Tank Girl comics from the early 90s to like Peter Chung's Aeon Flux cartoons on television, to being in art school and being around like stoners and talking about like Robert Crumb and Zap Comics. And so all these things started melding into each other. And also I was hanging out with graffiti writers and DJs at the time. So the graffiti hip hop influence you can see in my early work. So all of these things started to fuse together into a style that worked for my self-published stuff. But like getting back to your original question, that style became something that was like, well, this isn't going to work for mainstream comics.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter anymore because I was on my path, and I eventually got hired to draw like Kevin Smith's first Clerks comic.
Yeah.
And so that weird style fit perfect for
Sure.
Kevin's indie film, black and white aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
So developing a weird kind of non-mainstream style wound up working toward my advantage.
Yeah. I remember the first, like, really, I'd say real, I'm going to call it like a fine art comic that I read as a kid that just blew me away was Beautiful Stories for Ugly Children.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they were gorgeous, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's such beautiful work. And you're like, this is not, I think that's the one that kind of like got me away from like superheroes and Robotech and,
Yeah.
you know,
Although, you know, when we were in college, we all started to go through this anti-Marvel and DC mainstream phase.
Yeah.
No superheroes, none of that bullshit. That's corporate stuff. That's garbage. We're self-publishing. We're going our indie route.
Yep.
And that was kind of a very college 90s DIY attitude to have.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm older, man, I love it all. Like I still love old superhero comics. I love indie stuff. I love black and white stuff. So it's kind of funny when you look back at things and where you were at and where your art style was at and your headspace of, well, now I'm onto this thing, or now I'm onto that thing. But for me, it's just I love the art form of comic books, and it's like if it's done right, I don't care if it's superheroes or whatever it is. It's just I want good art and good stories.
Yeah, and the good stories to me is like one of the things that really turns me off to comic books is I feel like the characters get pushed to a god level, you know, because you have to push them to that breaking point, and then they come back, and then the next time you push them to the breaking point has to be beyond that. And so, you know, the characters who've been around forever are like gods, you know, so they're never in real peril.
Yeah.
And when they did, I think it was the original 52 series where they didn't write with the big three, and they did like the story about Question and Mary Marvel and all these characters that no one really did much with. And the stories were so good.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm like, you just need a good story instead of a good character, you know?
Yeah. That's the problem, man, with growing up with the 80s comics, because in a way, I don't want to be closed-minded, but in a way, I almost feel like the superhero thing reached its pinnacle with stuff like Watchmen.
Yeah.
And Dark Knight Returns. And so I know people carried on that tradition with stuff like The Authority, and that stuff's all great. But at the same time, it's kind of like, how many more stories can you tell about good guys and bad guys punching each other?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like when they redo, you know, another Fast and the Furious. Like, even if you like the first one, you're like, it's still just people driving around in cars, you know, another story.
Yeah. There's like 10 of those movies now or something.
Yeah. I don't even know.
I don't know.
So what have you been working on this year?
Man, I'm doing my Girl Scouts comic book. It's a creator owned thing I've been doing on and off since I was in college. So I'm doing a brand new series for Image Comics. It's called Girl Scouts Stone Ghost. And I'm working on issue 4 right now of a 6-issue series. So it's something I started about a year ago. And then once quarantine hit, I was like, okay, now I finally have a chance to really sit down and just bang these pages out and just get it done, you know.
Did you find that you still were able to be like creative? I had a really, really hard time drawing this year. I just didn't have like the energy.
Yeah. I did, because my way to react to like stress or anxiety or uncertainty is to do art.
Yeah.
So without sounding too like hippie spiritual about it, I mean, that's kind of like my release, my way of making sense of the world, I guess, is to be in studio, have loud music cranking, and just be in that creative zone. so for me, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that helps me. And also, man, with the cool thing about working on a comic or a big project is I love waking up every day knowing exactly what I have to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that uncertainty of what's my next gig going to be, or what am I doing today? Like, knowing that I always have to pencil and ink a new page and keep the project moving forward. That actually gets me excited every day to get up and be like, oh shit, okay, I have a new challenge ahead of me. I've got another page to lay out, pencil, ink, the whole thing recycles itself over and over again. Oh, now you finished a page. Now you've got, 23 more to do. Oh, you finished an issue. Now you have a whole other issue to start.
Right.
So it's giving myself parameters, a schedule, and sort of self-imposed deadlines. That brings a sort of ease and comfort to my mind and my attitude. It may sound stressful to other people, but I like having that kind of like structure.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I'm doing like freelance illustration work for different clients. And I also do like commissions for people through the mail. So I've got different things going on, but for the last year, like having this comic book series to sort of be my main focus, it's kept me distracted from all the crazy nightmarish shit going on.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? It's like at a certain point, dude, you just got to turn off the news. And for me, I just have to get in the studio and get that ink slinging and get to work,
Yeah. I found basically an office space downtown here in Plymouth that to use. I was, I had my day job. I got laid off. And so I was trying to get work done at home, and distracting is not even the right word. It's just too tempting to not work at home. Like, oh, I'm got laundry to do, or I'm going to go have a snack, or, oh, well, I'm going to watch something on Netflix or take a nap, and just nothing's getting done. And just something about getting up, showering, getting dressed, and leaving the house that makes me so much more productive. And whether it's a mindset thing or I don't know.
Yeah. But I feel you. It's funny, like half of my friends that are freelancers say the exact same thing you just said, where they're like, I have to leave my house and go to a different space, and I do my work, and at 6 o'clock or whatever at night, I clock out and I go home and my work is done for the day. I've been working at home for over 20 years. So it works for my lifestyle, where if I suddenly feel inspired at like 9 o'clock at night to get off the couch and go tinker with a page again, like back in studio, I like being able to do that and having the immediacy of that. But at the same time, I'm also single and live alone. So a lot of my friends that are married or have children or both, they're the guys that have the outside studio where they treat it like a day job, and they go to this building and do their work, and then they come home and have dinner and it's family time.
Right. Yeah. So, I think it's helpful to have that kind of separation. And
it's cool because everyone's different with their approach. Like, some people like to work at night and stay up all night, so there's no calls or distractions. Some people wake up in the morning and treat it like a day job, where it's like, I'm clocking in and doing my thing. And, I've tried all different routines. I used to be a nighttime worker, and now I'm more like a daytime worker. And the late afternoon is into the early evening is where I get a big chunk of my work done.
Do you think that's from getting older too, or just
probably?
Yeah.
But it's also, I think it's, I found for my body, it's healthier to have the same schedule every day. And when I was doing like the all night vampire hour type thing, it just kind of fucks with your body a little bit, I think.
Oh, big time.
Like to be waking up and starting your day at like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I'm saying? And then
the sun's like, starting to come up and you're going to bed. Yeah.
It's weird. So
I worked overnights for, I think, 2 years, and I felt like a zombie. You know, and you can't do anything because people are like, oh, we're having a cookout. And you're like, I can't go because I can't function because I have to sleep during the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm very much 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, have my weekends off. But in the same aspect, I kind of feel like I always work because it's what I enjoy doing. So it's, even when I'm home, be sending text messages or emails and that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, it never, I mean, that's the thing that for me too, it's like, it never really ends. It never really shuts off. So,
Yeah.
even at night, like when I'm done drawing, I'll sit on the couch and put on a movie, but I have the script in front of me for the comic I'm working on, and I'll be thinking about layouts and doing little sketches and panel breakdowns, and I'll have comic books in front of me and flip through them for inspiration. So even when it's not on, man, it's still happening. It's still, but I really dig doing the work. So for me, it really isn't, it's not that complicated. It doesn't feel like a burden.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, when I did work for Home Depot, I worked like 6 to 3 or something like that, Monday through Friday. And I was exhausted and had no motivation because it was soul sucking, but doing Inebri-Art stuff, it's like, I enjoy it so much that I work twice as much, but I don't even feel like it because it never really feels like work.
Yeah. That's the best. I mean, that's where I consider myself really fortunate that I discovered what I wanted to do when I was really young. I think that's kind of one of the key factors with making a living off your talent, whether it's drawing or music, filmmaking. It's an obvious thing to say, but the younger you start, the more you figure things out, and obviously the better you get, and you kind of figure out your own groove and how this fits into your life and how you can make it happen. So
it gives you more time to screw up. Kind of like learn from those mistakes.
Yeah. It's like you got to get all those terrible drawings out of your system.
Yeah.
Before you can move on to the good shit you're eventually going to do. So the younger artists that approach me for advice, the more I feel like those kids have the best chance, because start as early as you can, man, and just start grinding and working, because it's a long haul.
Yeah.
This shit doesn't come easy. I mean, unless you're some rare genius prodigy or something, like if you're the next James Jean or something, maybe you're just, lucky or whatever. But most artists I know, man, that are professionals, like we've all worked our asses off.
And I feel like so many people don't get that. They'd be like, oh, you're so talented. And be like, no, I worked to get this down.
Yes.
The
talented thing is kind of a backwards compliment, because when people say that, they have good intentions.
Right.
But when they're saying you're so talented, it's unbelievable, it's almost like they're saying you just were bestowed this magic gift.
Yeah.
You can just draw naturally. It's like, no. There was thousands of hours of paying dues put into this thing that you see in front of you that you're writing off as just almost like a magic trick.
Right.
It's not a magic trick. It's like, this is backbreaking hours spent at the drawing table figuring all this shit out.
And I always get those people be like, oh, I can't draw. And they'd be like, no, you just haven't learned to, and they're like, no, I can't. And I'd be like, well, how much time in your life do you think you've actually spent drawing? 10 hours? I'm like, if I have only drawn 10 hours, I'd be drawing stick figures too.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's weird because there's really no secrets. Whenever I give advice, it's always like the cliche advice of draw all the time, every day. Like, I carry a sketchbook with you literally everywhere you go. I think someone was telling me, I saw a documentary about Jimi Hendrix, and it was like, he literally carried a guitar with him everywhere he went.
Yeah.
To a restaurant, to the movie theater, and he would be plucking at it and just fucking around with it literally everywhere he went. And that's why he was the best at it, basically. you don't just wake up and become Jimi Hendrix. You have to put in that time.
Do you think there will still be people like that where people are more apt to carry their, and I don't want to be like the old guy, be like, oh, people are always on their phone, but like, you know, I used to carry my sketchbook all the time. I don't anymore. I should. But like kids, God, this is making me sound so old. Kids nowadays, you know, but it's like, you know, everybody has their phone. So it's like those times when I'd be sitting and having nothing to do, whether it's in a coffee shop or you're waiting at the DMV, that you bust out the sketchbook and I just mindlessly fuck around on your phone.
That is true. I guess it depends on the kid.
Yeah.
One of my buddies in comics, he has teenagers, his kids, and they're interested in drawing and doing music. And so his son is always playing guitar and his daughter's always doodling and drawing. I don't know if she's actually doing it in a sketchbook or on her iPad or whatever, but
yeah, I suppose it's true. My daughter does a lot of stuff on her tablet. So
yeah. So yeah. I think it's just like the interest level of the kid, no matter where the technology's at. But I mean, dude, let's face this though. You and I, it's like when we were kids, we had way less distractions.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I mean, the cool shit that we thought was cool, like when I was a kid growing up, like we had Atari 2600.
Yep.
Which would keep your attention for about an hour. You'd play the primitive games, and then we would go outside. We'd play outside. We'd play on our dirt bikes, skateboards. We had our G.I. Joes, and we had comic books.
Right.
And that was about it, man. And then when it was time for me and my neighborhood friends to kick it and hang out and draw, we'd hang out and draw, and there was not much to distract from that. Now, if you're a kid and you have a fucking supercomputer in your hand.
Yeah. That has access to every movie.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends, like I said, on the kid and what their level of distraction is. But, you know, it seems like there's still people interested in doing this stuff. So we'll see. You know, it's interesting.
So are you hoping to do cons this year? Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know about this year.
Yeah.
I think most of my peers that I talk to, all of us are sort of thinking it's not going to happen this year. So,
I mean, cons were petri dishes to begin with.
I know, man. Emerald City in Seattle announced that they have the space reserved for December of this year. But that was always one of the biggest shows, man, with like 80,000 people. So I just don't see like 80,000 people getting together. And one of my friends was telling me, like, I wonder if next year, if they'll try and test the waters by like in the summertime or nice weather time, someone's starting to do like outdoor conventions, if that is even a possibility.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Or some sort of tent situation, like at least outdoors, not in a sealed building with strangers, but
shoulder to shoulder, unable to move.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's crazy to think that the future of conventions is sort of in doubt right now.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where to even begin thinking, how is this going to all work itself out or come back?
Yeah, we used to run a monthly figure drawing group. There's a bar down here that has a small concert venue in the back.
Yeah.
And so like the first Monday of every month, we'd get a model and, you know, charge a cover charge, and artists would show up and draw from the model. And it's like, I miss that so much. But even towards the end of the summer when things were kind of okay, you know, I rolled the idea out to some of our regulars, been like, would you even consider going? And they're like, not right now. So
like even with masks and stuff,
masks and 6 feet apart, they're like, yeah, I just don't feel comfortable. And you know, like, all right, so, but hopefully maybe this summer will be a little different.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, you know, everyone's view of things is different. So I don't expect people to make drastic decisions right now. And I mean, I haven't even gotten on a plane in a year, man. And I used to, like I said, I used to travel once a month.
Right.
So I haven't even gone back to St. Louis to see my family in over a year. And the cases there are getting bad and everything. And so I'm not afraid to fly, but the idea of me possibly bringing my parents who are in their late 70s, an illness or a virus, it's just too weird to like risk or whatever. So it's just one of those things of, I guess I'll just play it safe and be at home and draw until someone taps me on the shoulder and says, it's okay to go back out into the world or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like I said, I don't have anything to complain about really, because I'm just watching movies, listening to music, and drawing all day. It could be way worse than that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah.
What do you listen to when you draw?
Man, everything. I've been a music fanatic since I was a kid. So my collection is rooted in almost every genre. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of like 60s and 70s funk music, 80s and early 90s hip hop stuff. I've got a bunch of 70s rock, metal, reggae, jazz. I mean, basically everything except for opera music. I've even got some classical. I've even got some country. Like I'll listen to Johnny Cash, so yeah, music to me, I think it informs my work in a much more creative way than just having like a movie or a TV show on or a podcast.
Yeah.
Because I think my work, the way I'm putting down lines and the gestural way I'm doing figures, the exaggeration I'm using, it's kind of representative of sort of a rhythmic feeling or pattern in a way. I mean, at least that's the vibe I get when I'm making the work. So, it just kind of, I find it deeply inspiring to just have some sort of music on and just go to town, and have a good time. Yeah,
I definitely prefer to work. If I'm working at the computer doing stuff, I'd rather have like a podcast on, because I think it occupies my mind to keep away from the mundane things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But if I'm drawing or painting or something, then that's when I want music on, because then I'm standing and moving, and it's more. I don't want to say it's like a dance, because that sounds stupid, but you know what I'm saying.
I feel you. I feel it. It's funny because I'm super specific too, where like when I'm writing or doing layouts, it has to be only instrumental music. Like I don't even want vocal stuff interrupting the focus or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like when I'm penciling, it's usually upbeat music, but sometimes mostly instrumental. Because again, I'm thinking as I'm penciling, I'm still sort of writing in a way.
Yeah.
And then inking, which is just the pure fun and the joy of just, now here's where my style comes in. Here's where I have fun.
Yeah.
That's like loud, like punk music or energized, and then later at night when I'm winding things down, it's more back to down tempo, like jazz or something. And then, like you said, when I'm on the computer, like cleaning up pages after I've scanned them in Photoshop, that's when I'll put on like the podcast or a movie or something. And I've been doing a little digital coloring on the new comic as well. And just doing something as boring as like flatting the colors and stuff.
Yeah.
I can have podcasts on for that, because it's like I'm not even thinking. I just I'm in automatic pilot and I know exactly what I need to do. So I can actually be listening to a conversation.
Right. And I feel like that keeps your brain going. So you're not as bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's kind of cool because I talk to my friends about this a lot, of like everyone's different approaches to work and the environment they're in, the outside stimulus they're taking in, whether it's music or movies or I know certain people that don't work to music at all. And to me, it's just like,
do they just sit in silence?
They'll either sit in silence or they have like movies or TV on. And, but everyone's different. I find that I'm pretty specific in the way that I approach what I'm doing.
Is there any new band that you're listening to that you would recommend? I'm always looking for new stuff to listen to.
I'm trying to think of my playlist that I have going right now. I go back so much to like the old shit that I love. So
yeah.
I've been in a pretty intense Frank Zappa phase lately. There's a band called Crumbrin out of Austin, Texas. That's like instrumental funk soul. They're new. I've been listening to their stuff.
Is there something? I mean, Austin's like this crazy hotbed of cool stuff, but is there like a whole music scene that's like bursting out of there? Because I just found out about the Black Pumas, and they're kind of like that.
Oh yeah, those guys are great too.
They're phenomenal.
I just discovered them as well. My brother turned me on to them. Are they from Austin?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
I only know about them because someone's like, "Oh, they killed it at the inauguration." I'm like, "Who the hell are they?" And then I put them on. I'm like, "Oh, wow."
Wow. They played the inauguration?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Someone in the Biden party's got good taste.
No kidding, right? And it's one of those.
Hilarious.
Yeah. I'm like, did you pick them because the song is called Colors and you feel like it's but yeah, who knows? But they killed it. They're great.
Something in the water, I guess, in Austin. But yeah, the bands like that are doing like this new sort of soul funk revival. There's a lot of stuff out of Brooklyn, like the Budos Band and El Michaels Affair. Those guys are all great. There's a band out of Canada I love called Bad Bad Not Good, and it's like these super funky white Canadian dudes doing funk and soul, and they even did a whole record with Ghostface Killah.
No kidding.
Rapping over their stuff. It's all on Spotify. It's really good shit.
I'll check that out.
But yeah, man, music is a thing that it's hard for me to talk about because it would go on for like 10 hours. You're like, oh no, why did I ask this question?
Oh no, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm sorry for talking too much. I'm like, it's a podcast. You're supposed to talk. Makes my job easier.
Yeah.
We're actually about the hour mark, so I'm gonna let you go. But where can people go online to find you? Social medias, websites, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of music, I do host a music podcast called Skull Funk Radio, and it's basically me just making an hour-long mixtape.
Oh, nice.
And I'll chat in between every 3 or 4 songs and just give a little background on some of the music. And people can check that out at skullfunkradio.fireside.fm. And there's like 52 episodes up.
Nice.
All free. And my daily thing is basically Instagram. It's just at Jim Mahfood, my name. That's also my Twitter. And my site is jimmahfood.com if you want to buy my books, prints, mini comics.
Get a commission.
All that stuff. Get a commission.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. This was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, good talking to you, Andy. Thanks.
Yeah, it's I've gone through such a rash of talking to young people. It's nice to talk to someone my own age.
Yeah, nice.
Where you make a reference and you get it.
Yeah. Back in our days of Atari.
Yeah, I used to have.
There's a kid listening who's like, "What are these guys talking about?"
I sent so I have 2 kids, and I sent them a picture of the old school McDonald's ashtrays.
Yes.
And I just said, "What do you guys think this is?" And my son's like, "Is it a pie plate?" And my daughter's like, "It's a hubcap." And I'm like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what made you reference the McDonald's ashtrays specifically?
I just stumbled across it on someone posted on Facebook, and it was like one of those, I'm this year's old or whatever. And then I was just like, I wonder if my kids even would know what that is. Like in their lifetimes, people smoke outside, and an ashtray is usually like a post-shaped thing that you drop your butt into. Right. And, when we were growing up, there were ashtrays everywhere. And
oh, yeah, yeah. Dude, my mom used to smoke cigarettes in our carpool during school. She'd drive the big station wagon and pick us all up. And the windows, I think, were down. But Just be blazing a cigarette with like 7 kids in the car. Like no one cared, you know.
My father used to have.
Now you would be arrested for that. Now
sure. Yeah.
You'd be like charged with like child endangerment or something, and the parents group from that school would get you arrested or something would happen. You know, it would be
they'd shut down the family business and
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, my father used to have an ashtray on the coffee table, and it was probably the size of a small pizza box, and it was like disgustingly full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was way looser back then, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Way looser.
But some things are better.
Maybe after this we'll get back to a looser era.
Yeah, I don't really want that looseness with smoking though. I'm not a smoker.
Smoking, but you know, it would be great if people could relax a little bit at some point. That's a whole other podcast conversation, but
yeah.
You know, we deserve a break is what I'm saying.
For sure, man. Yeah. I'm curious to see how quick things go from that kind of hesitant touching your toe in the water kind of thing to full on. Because so I live in Plymouth, Mass, and between Water Street and Main Street. So Water Street's where Plymouth Rock and the Mayflower is, and then Main Street's the next street over. Conservatively, there's 40 bars.
Wow.
Yeah, it is a real drinking town, and so I'm curious to how quickly it's going to go back to, the crazy Friday nights and Saturday nights and stuff.
Dude, there's going to be like a orgy in the street or something. Like once it's officially over, it's going to be like these 40 bars are all at capacity.
Yeah, it's going to. Hopefully they still stay open, man. Like I'm friends with a lot of the owners, and they're having a rough time of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Portland's been real careful about everything. So, but the downside of that is a lot of the privately owned mom and pop shops, including restaurants and bars, are not going to be reopening.
Right. Yeah.
So that sucks. I mean, I just got here 2 years ago or 3 years ago and was like, this town is great for food and booze and all that kind of stuff. And some of that stuff I'm not going to be able to explore because it won't be coming back. But I don't know, man. We just have to power through it. And
we'll get there.
See what happens.
Well, when you're traveling again, if you come out to, Boston Comic-Con or something, drop me a line, come hang out. There's phenomenal food. We got 4 breweries, 2 wineries, a distillery, and a cider place.
Yes. That sounds awesome. Let's eat some seafood and.
We got amazing chefs here. It's ruined me. Like I can't. I go to other towns and be like, "Where do you guys eat?" They're like, "Oh, we have a Buffalo Wild Wings." I'm like, "Fuck that." Yeah.
That's not going to cut it if you're a food connoisseur.
No, I mean we have amazing French restaurants, like a Caribbean type style place. Lots of farm to table. Yeah.
I was in Boston like for the Comic-Con. I guess the last time it was 5 or 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And man, we ate really well out there. Yeah. It was awesome. It's just a cool town, man. Everyone's cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So thanks so much, man.
My pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-Art or on Instagram at Inebri-Art6. You can email us at Inebri-Art@yahoo.com. And make sure you listen to the other podcasts on the Inebri-Art Podcast Network, including Bar Talk, Old Colony Cast, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror Podcast, and our newest one, Theme Park Legends, a podcast about working at theme parks. What else? And we'll catch you again next time.